Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. We're grateful that you can join us for another week. And we're super excited today. We have Julie Wignall on with us. She's a visionary leader whose unconventional career has spanned national politics, international business, the arts, and environmental conservation. She gained international recognition for her groundbreaking work with Mirage Resorts International, where she partnered with the chairman and the CEO to revolutionize animal welfare, launch award-winning education programs, and drive impactful environmental initiatives. Julie believes in the power of individuals to create meaningful change. She coined the term fireflies to describe those who break barriers and illuminate new possibilities. Her multi-award winning book, The Extraordinary Power of Fireflies, shares inspiring stories of those who dare to make a difference. Today, she is a sought-after speaker, coach, consultant, and workshop leader, equipping change makers with the tools to align their purpose and amplify their impact. And she's here to share with us how we can each harness our light to transform the world. So, welcome, Julie. We're excited to have you on with us.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
So I'm excited. I have actually read your book and I gave Mom a copy of it so she could also read it. So I'm not sure where she's at in it yet, but it's a fabulous book. So can you tell us a little bit about what got you on that path and what inspired you to write this book?
Yes, my path career-wise has been incredibly unconventional. Career-wise and personally too. I've been through a lot of crazy different things. And we set out on what we think is the path and we say this is the way it goes. And life kind of happens. We get winding roads, we have obstacles. So the path that I've taken has always been very, very unconventional. I left school when I was just 14, thinking that I hated learning. And the truth was, I didn't hate learning. I was unhappy with the system. And I found myself a year later in college. Now, at the time, that was considered very unconventional. I was, that rebel. And I didn't go to college because I was at the top of my class. If you had looked at the yearbook, they probably would have voted me like the least likely to graduate from high school. I went to college because I loved learning and I loved the environment, and I found it one of the dean that helped me to make my dreams come true with that. And that led me on a path to saying, things don't always happen or people don't always open the doors as you hope they do. And when they don't, the answer is it's not a sign from the universe to say give up and stop. It's a sign from the universe. It's just go try another door down the street. So by doing that, I made my way to national politics, working on a presidential campaign before I was actually even old enough to vote. Found my way working with congressmen. I have worked with the theater, and I ultimately ended up going to Australia, where I studied marine science. Now, it sounds really exotic, but the truth is I wanted to study marine biology, and it was too expensive here. And I learned that I could go to this fabulous school on the British system for 1/8 the cost, including my plane fare, including my everything. So it's led me to say there's always another way. And I came back. I've worked with the National Aquarium in Washington, D.C., and the National Zoo. And I made my way from there working for animal care with a Fortune 500 company, where I said, the problem with working with nonprofits and everything that I'm doing is everybody is always looking for making more money. Well, what if we worked with a major corporation that had that money and they were still interested in environmental issues? What could we accomplish? So I got my turn to see what could happen, and it was an amazing experience. And I started by thinking, I want to put this down. We need people to stop sitting on the sidelines, stop wishing and hoping and wanting, and we need them to take action. We need that special brand of absolutely everybody. But as I sat down to start writing the book, I thought, if it's just my story, if I were reading and I go, oh, yeah, that's really good for her, but how am I going to do any of that? So I gathered people from around the world and 20 different examples of amazing people in all different fields, from the arts to science to business, working in social justice and music, and said, I want to put their stories in because they're also unconventional. And I call this unconventional because it's really not like it's you're doing this to rebel. It's not that you're trying to fight against anything. It's just not the current convention. And my belief is that we have to stop waiting for systems to change, for politicians to come in and make changes. We need to make that change, and we need to be the ones that create the world that we want to live in. So I gathered these people who have all, again, followed unconventional routes. And what happens is when more and more people become unconventional, I went to college when I was 14, 15. Today, if you had a 14, 15-year-old tell you that, you wouldn't really think twice about it. We've got kids in high school across the United States that are attending college classes. We have kids who are graduating from high school with a 2-year degree. It's no longer unconventional. And as more of us say, this path in the system isn't working, it's worn out, I have another idea and a different way to go. As we take action to do that, we find that more people join us, and over time, that unconventional begins to become conventional. And that's what these individuals I've written about have done all over the world, and I call them fireflies. If anyone has ever seen a firefly growing up in a backyard, um, that light, when they shine that, it brings delight, magic, and it reminds us of the power that we each have inside of us. And what's really cool is that there are over 2,000 species of fireflies, and they actually shine in all kinds of different colors. So this is a family that embraces a wide amount of diversity. And while there are the species that glow in people's backyards, there are also species that we call the synchronous fireflies. We're lucky enough that we've got some here in North America in the Smoky Mountains, and there's another group of them in Malaysia that they all light up in unison. So imagine walking through a forest and it's getting dark, and it's so dark you can barely see your fingertips at the end of your arms, and you look up and all of a sudden the entire forest lights up with fireflies that are flashing in unison, hundreds at a time, and then there are hundreds that answer them, and they're yellowish and they're green, but then you look down at the forest floor and they're the blue ghost fireflies, and they look like landing strips, and you feel like you are in the middle of an enchanted novel. And it really does remind you that the world has magic in it, that there are miracles all around us every day, and that power is not just in these tiny little beetles. We each have a light inside of us, and we each carry that kind of power.
I love that because I think your message is so strong. I love that you're saying that we all have this light and that, it's kind of almost our inner responsibility to stand up for the things that we want, but also to make these changes and see these transformations by the changes that we're making. And I think the more authentic that we live our life, true to who we are, we start making these changes. And I would agree. Like I actually was just having that conversation before we came on here a little bit was about the schooling system and how I just feel like it's so archaic the way that they do things because that is not the way that all children learn. All children do not learn by sitting down in front of a book in a desk and learning. Hands down, I don't care if they're in kindergarten or grade 12, it's not how everybody learns. So why are we not moving and transforming and changing things? And the more that you see these parents and different people standing up for this, we're going to see those transformational changes in so many
I
different Yes.
And I agree with you. We're seeing more and more homeschooling. We're seeing different charter schools that focus on different things. My own daughter went to a charter school that was project-based learning. They all, some are based on science, some are based on this. But my feeling is, in terms of the general student population, we take our kids and we put them in these buildings. And we separate them from communities, and then they graduate and we say, oh, it's your responsibility as a citizen to go out there and create community. But we've never taught them that. We've never had them engage with all of the different aspects of what that means to be part of a community. And that makes a big difference in what we do. I work with a number of students, and I love working with students, but working with the book, one of the big things that came up that we really need in terms of moving forward and working is we need more movements, groups that are multi-generational. I mean, I love the fact that you both work together. I work with my daughter, and that's like best partner in crime I could have.
Agree.
Um,
I agree.
but when I'm starting something new, I want someone who is older than I am. I want other people who are my age. I want people who are younger than I am. I want people in their 30s and 40s and in their 20s. And I want that 10-year-old because that 10-year-old reminds me of my vision. We come into this life. I believe that we all know deep in our soul, if we listen, but we came in with a commitment to do something, to learn something, to grow, to understand more about relationships, or to have an impact on the world one way or another. And we each have that special gift that's just ours. And we have that light inside of us that's there to shine. And just like you said, in terms of students, they don't all learn the same way. We don't all make it to the top of the mountain the same way. And which is one of the reasons why I used so many different people and in different fields to illustrate some of the points that I was making, because there's not just one road up to the top. It's like the people who write those diet books and they say, you have to do this my way and you'll lose 20 pounds. But if you don't do what I tell you, it's like my way or the highway. And it's like, no, there are a lot of different paths and there are a lot of different tools, I believe, that help us to get to the top of that mountain. We all fight the same battles with our fears and our insecurities, no matter who you are or what you've got. But I also believe that the universe has provided a lot of tools at our disposal that help us with those battles to say, you came here not to stand on the sidelines. You came here to fulfill your heart's desire. You came here to be happy. You came here to make a difference. And there are a lot of different tools, whether you're working, with the help of mediums or angels or tarot cards or meditation or coaches or therapists, whatever works. It's not just one way to the top. And one of the big things that I encourage people is, we give a lot of lip service to things. We say, oh, it's the journey, it's not the destination. But we're really just paying lip service to it. Are we really thinking about that? Because the truth is we tell ourselves, oh, I can be happy when I reach this goal. I can be happy when I do this. And then we reach that goal and we go, okay, I can be happy when I do the next goal. I can relax and be happy when I do the next. And when you've accomplished a lot of different things, you start realizing that the first thing that you do, even with that biggest accomplishment, when someone graduates from high school, what is the biggest thing you do? You spend about 10 seconds patting yourself on the back and going, let's celebrate. And then feeling scared and insecure, going, what is the next step? Or I see another mountain that I want to climb. And when we're sitting there talking about the accomplishment that we made, we're not talking about, oh, look at me, what we do. We start sharing stories of all the mistakes that we made along the way. It's like, do you remember the time we did this? And oh my gosh, what were we thinking? And those are the moments that actually bring joy. and
Mhm.
they fulfill us. Those are and those become those important things when you start thinking about all the things that you've done. You don't think about the awards, the accolades. You think about the people that you met, the moments that you had, the meals that you shared, the ups, the downs, and those times where we really connect with each other. So
Yeah.
if we know that that's the magic, then I say let's do a paradigm shift and let's really work more on connecting with each other and connecting authentically,
Mhm.
as you said. Um, I worked many years ago with a group of 15, 16-year-old boys that were the quote unquote troublemakers. They were kicked out of their homes and sent to a boarding school. And I had the chance to work with them, and they were incredibly intelligent and very innovative, but they carried a lot of anger and frustration. And after the second day of working with them, I stopped and I said, if I were your fairy godmother and I could come knock on your door and say, your wish is my command, what would you like? I'm here to grant everything that you want. What would make you happy? And I was met with a bunch of blank stares. And
I bet.
one of them, and I'm expecting, oh, 15, 16-year-old boys, they're going to say, oh, I want to be a famous rap star and I want millions of dollars. Da, da, da. And they stared at me blankly. And one of the kids finally said, you know what? No one's ever asked me that before. And I went, wait a minute, let's think about this. When we're young and we're little, we know what makes us happy. But something kind of happens as we grow older, we become enculturated. We have family members or society members that, oh, you think that that's what makes you happy? No, that's not what makes you happy. They tell you, you need to be on this path, not on that path. We start with our kids when they're in elementary school and we say, you can grow up to be anything that you'd like to be. And then as soon as they become teenagers, we say, oh, yeah, but now it's time for you to start thinking about your health care and the bills and we squash that creativity. And my goal is to say, let's go back, let's remember what makes us happy. And then when we're talking about being authentic with it, let's come up today. This is so important to me. Let's come up with what is our code of values and how we're going to work with integrity, with authenticity, with transparency, with honesty. What are those things that are important? Because we need to start setting new standards for that and sharing that with others so that they know they can trust us for those value systems. And so that we can encourage others to build their value systems as well, so that we can deal authentically. And,
Mhm.
even as adults, what do? We show up at parties and they go, oh, how have you been doing? And you go, what can I say to say, oh, I'm now doing this and this and this, to boast? Wouldn't it be nice to be able to be authentic and say, well, I've been trying this and it really hasn't been working so much. I work at being authentic because I want to live in a world where when I say I'm happy and things are exciting, that they really are, or when I say I am really confused, or I just really made a mess of things, that these are all part of what it means to be human. And I want to be authentic along all those lines and to make it okay for other people to do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was interesting when I wrote the book, and there are a lot of people who say, "Oh yeah, I'm okay with that." And I had a piece where let me backtrack for a minute and tell you a backstory on this. The people that you read about in my book were not the first 20 people that I had listed.
Oh,
I have a group of 20 to 25 people that if I gave you the names and what they've done, you would probably say to me, I think I remember reading something about that person or finding out about them. Well, wanting to be authentic, I went to reach out to everybody and I wanted them to know I want to include you in my book. This is what I've written. I'd like you to check it because I don't want to do cut and paste. I want to make sure that this is your voice and you're comfortable with what I'm saying. And I found that they were all really smoke and mirrors and it was fake and they may have made it to the top of a news headline, but they were lacking in that integrity. So picture this, I'm writing this, it's during the pandemic. And I'm like, is there no one in the world that I can use to talk about this? And I have a wonderful publisher who said, Julie, just take a breath, take some steps back, and start at the beginning and see who you found. And there was definitely universal intervention involved, and I found amazing people all over the world who really are the real deal, and they continue to inspire me today. Um,
Right.
One is just more amazing than the next. But again, they all chose to say, I'm willing to stand up and be authentic. One of the pieces that I was trying to write about was what does that mean in terms of failure? And I've worked with some notable people that have had some really epic fails and have explained that to their staff. And I reached out and I said, I would love to put this in my book because I think people would learn so much from it. And it was like, oh no, I can't have people know me that way. So I had to write about my own epic fail to get that in there because I think it is important, but no one was willing to. There was a lot of lip service to that. Yes, oh, we all need to be able to be transparent with that. Oh, but no, I don't want to be in your book to be able to say that I failed that way. So I was like, okay, I'll take the fall for everybody.
Exactly. But sometimes some of our greatest lessons are our failures, right? We
Uh,
learn so much if we can take those failures and reflect on them. And, we can look at situations. And that's one thing that I'm trying to do now is like when you're in situations with a whole bunch of different people, you're trying to meet them where they're at. So you're trying to not jump into their brain, but just a little bit to be like, okay, where's this person coming from? Because, you know,
Yeah.
the way I would do it, the way they're doing it is polar opposite. Does that make it wrong? Not necessarily. And is there maybe a lesson there to be learned from each other?
Right. Right. Well,
Right.
and that was my big point on that. And I wrote when I was the director of the National Aquarium, I had this great brainchild that I wanted to develop a program for visually impaired students. I spent months working with PhDs and the top people who worked with visually impaired to tell me how to do this back and forth. And I followed all the research and I put together the program, and it was an absolute fiasco. And the reason it was a fiasco was I brought in the kids for the pilot program and nothing worked. And I forgot to ask the kids. And I have a concept that says if you want to be an activist for something, you have to start by being an advocate. You have to learn and you have to find out what people need. So I had gone to all these quote unquote experts in the field, and I had forgotten to go to the students that I was trying to reach. And I stopped the program 15 minutes in and said, I need your help. And we went back and we redid the program with the students, and it did become very successful, but it was a huge learning lesson that I've
Mm.
never forgotten.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I loved how your book too had like the exercises in it as well that you could do after you read the story. Sort of, even like for me, I didn't write in it because I was sharing it with my mom, but I just, and I didn't want her to cheat off me. No, I'm just kidding. But right, but it was still good because I still reflected on those questions, and I thought that was a really interesting way to do the book. I love books that are interactive that way, that give
Yeah.
you that after you're reading the story, right? Because there is so much inspiration, and I really love your message of, I loved the synchronicity with the fireflies because I feel like that really comes into us as humans, where, synchronistically, as we are lighting ourselves up, we're lighting other people up along our way and vice versa, right? So,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, as we do that, we totally illuminate the way for others. Dorothy Parker, the writer, once said, I hate writing, but I love having written. And that's kind of me. I mean, I used to say, oh, Writing makes me fat because I stare at the screen and it's like, what can I eat while I'm sitting there thinking? And the next thing you know, I've gone through a bowl of peanuts, I've gone through a bowl of popcorn, I've gone through and everything. But I sat down with a number of people. I went to libraries, I went to bookstores, and I asked people what they liked about books and what they don't. And I happen to love books that are interactive, that I get something with. And what I got from a lot of people was I don't like books with long chapters because I feel like it's a commitment. So I have to
Yeah.
have enough time to get through that. And I went, you know what? That's a good point. So if I have 4 points that I'm going to make in a chapter, I want them as sub chapters to make it really easy. And then if my whole purpose of writing this book is actually to encourage people to shine their light brighter, I want to show them at the end of each chapter, I'm going to put in an exercise to say, okay, let's take what you've just read and see how it can apply to you. And
Mhm.
even in addition to the book on my website, I actually have, it's a free download and it's called Flying Lessons for Fireflies, five easy exercises to start shining your light right now. And there are things that we don't take enough time to think about. How can we know if we're happy if we don't know what makes us happy? And with the kids that I talked about over the next few days, they really started thinking about that. And the amazing thing is they came back with things like one of the boys said, I love getting up and making breakfast with my dad on Sunday mornings for the rest of the family. Someone else said, I love walking my dog. These weren't that they're not huge things. They really are those moments. But how do we know to enjoy them if we're not really aware?
Mhm.
I had a neighbor who said, okay, I keep hearing about your thing. I'm going to download that Flying Lessons for Fireflies. And she's, what makes me happy? And she called me and she said, I want you to know I was out in the garden and I was grumbling and I'm going, oh, I'm hot and I'm sweaty and why am I doing this? And I remembered your exercise and I stopped and went, oh, because it makes me happy. Garden Gardening makes me happy. It makes me happy to be in nature and to commune with this. And she said, all of a sudden, I stopped complaining and my whole world shifted. And I went, you know what? I feel pretty lucky to be able to be in this position where I can garden and I can sit down in the dirt and I can get back up again and that I can make things grow. So it's being aware of those things so that we know. And then we all talk about success, but we don't really take time to define it. I went and studied in Australia, and we had millionaires that were driving around in old pickup trucks. Well, because I went to school in the outback and it was desert area. And they joked and they said, "Ah, this guy could drive a Mercedes Benz or what's he going to do with it? It wouldn't go anyplace." So I was like, what is success and what does it mean to you? Is it having the big cars? Is it the diamonds and the jewelry? Is it the big house? Is it just having financial security? Having time with your friends, your family? I spent a period of time in Mexico where my mom called it my beach bum days when before I became a marine biologist and wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And it was actually a pivotal moment that helped turn me. But I went to work as a snorkeling instructor. And the joke was I was working for a resort and the local fishermen would say all of these guys, they're working so hard so that they can afford to come here on vacation and lay in the hammocks and go fishing if they want to, go swimming and just nap during the day. I'm here, I'm a fisherman, and I get to do all of that. And I don't have to work all day long to make that $1 million to be able to come here because I'm already here and I've got it. So it's that self-awareness, being aware of
Mhm.
ourselves and what's really important to us. And when we do that, is our awareness increases, so does our intuitive nature.
Mhm.
And we pick up more in terms of those feelings. Am I on the right path? Everybody does it differently. Um, but it helps give us much better alignment for that. I actually had a mentor who was a scientist who went and lived on an island for over a year in between Australia and Singapore. There are over 45,000 islands, and a few of them are known for people who, well, at the time they'd say, oh, they have ESP, psychic abilities. Now we don't talk about that. We talk about intuition. They had all of it. And he came back and he said, I need to find out if this is for real or not. And he came back with some really interesting observations. He said, yes, it is completely 100% real. And within communities, different people have different gifts. It's not like everybody, if everybody's intuitive, that we all download or gather information in the same way. It's very different for each person, and some people had gifts for healing. Some people had gifts for sight, clairvoyance. Some people just got a sense of feeling. They actually had some people, and they were trained for this, to go into the ocean and to listen. And these people would come in and give them their weather forecast just from listening in the ocean. And I don't know about you, but if I so much as get into a swimming pool and I put my head underwater and I'm listening, I can't really hear anything other than pool bumps. And these are people who come back and they would go, not only this is the weather that's coming, but a ship is coming so many days. They did work very much telepathically. So what's the difference? And how did that take place? Well, first of all, he said these people are much more in tune with nature than we are. I mean, think about it. We spend our days within concrete and cinder block homes, and we walk on asphalt, and trees grow out of sidewalks. We don't always make that connection with nature. That was one. But I believe we still can do that. And even if you're in the middle of a city, if you still just have plants around you, you can connect with nature. But he said the other thing is their culture. Their culture, they didn't think that they were doing anything special. Their culture was completely accepting of all of this. Of course, that's what it is. Well, look what happens within our culture. We start talking about that, and all of a sudden it's, oh, she's really woo-woo. She's into this and she's into that. And this is crazy. But imagine when you have a culture that's accepting that the world is bigger than what we see, and working within the field of science and quantum physics. Quantum physics does not much more than give you a scientific explanation of what mystics have been telling us for thousands and thousands of years. The world is more than you see it is, and all your woo-woo stuff, actually, we can give you mathematical formulas for it. We don't understand how they work, but we know that the universe is multidimensional, that there's so much there that we don't see. And just because you don't see it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And again, if you open yourself up, shining that light brighter, becoming more in alignment, you start picking up the vibrations of the universe. And it is a vibration. We think of the earth as being dead, and it's like, oh, we talk about things moved in evolution until the dinosaurs all died and then everything stayed the same. No, it's a pulsing living planet. And it is a pulsing living universe. I mean, that's energy that's there. And when I talk about fireflies, what I encourage people to do in quantum physics, we talk about the subatom and then the subatom and the subatom, but what's in between that? We tend to think of this as it's dead space. It's not dead space. That's where your vibrational energy is. So when we say we rise in those spaces between, when someone goes, how was this person's prayers answered when this person's wasn't? Well, they were in tune with that vibration of that ether that was rising in those spaces between. And that's where I turn to fireflies. And I say, I define a firefly as someone who sees beyond the reality of what is. And they say, this is what needs to be. And then they take action to create that world that they want to live in, a world that's better for them, a world that's better for all of us. And that's the concept of the fireflies. A firefly does not ask for permission to light their light.
Right.
They just light. They don't wait. So I got to wait until I have the approval from my parents, my teachers, my society, whatever. No, they don't wait. They get out there and they do what they know they need to do. And at our core, we're all light and we all know we're here to do something. And that's the goal, is to say I'm here to hopefully inspire and encourage, and to say no more standing on the sidelines with those hopes and dreams and wishes. It's time to turn them into that reality that you want them
Yeah.
to be.
Yeah.
The endurer. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. And I think, that's listening to you talk, I think that people should really, for me, one of the things that they should hear from this and maybe do this as a self-reflection exercise is, because I know most people, if you ask them what would make you happy, where you said with the fairy godmother, I think a lot of people would, even at any age, be dumbfounded to have that deer in the headlight looks. So I
And
think
it's
I
a
would love to
fun
encourage
question.
people. Yeah, I think I would
Yeah.
encourage people to, right, when you're done listening to this, think about what would make you happy and how do you define success? Because success is so different for all of us. And know whatever your thing is that is your success is perfect, just like
Yeah.
it is. It doesn't have to be like everybody else's. So
No, not at
for
all.
me,
And
that would be definitely what I took from this, and definitely something that I would say to people. I would highly encourage you to do some self-reflection on that and read your book, because it was amazing.
oh, thanks. And then and then the next step is when you know what makes you happy and you know what success looks like to you, and that's allowed to change. A lot of people go, I don't know, I don't want to commit to this thing because what if I change my mind? You're not a stone, you're allowed to change. But first of all, it begins opening your eyes to opportunities that you may not have seen before, to go, oh, that sounds like that could be something that's a really good step on the right path. And then the
Yeah.
next step is to realize that, sure, we all have the fears but we need to embrace them and have them walk aside of us, acknowledge them and know what they are, but we can't let them steer the boats.
That's right.
I hear this from clients every day. Oh, I always wanted to do this, but I can't because I don't have a college degree. I can't tell you how many Fortune 500 executives I have worked with that don't have the college degree. But what happens over time, which is why I'm here to say, let's pull the curtains away and see what's behind that, because you go, of course, they all have this. No, they don't. But a lot of them, if they've been doing something for long enough and they're from a certain city or town, all of a sudden you have a college that goes, we're going to give them a degree. Jane Goodall is probably one of the most famous biologists in the world. Well, Jane didn't sit there in classes and go to Oxford. She got on a plane and she went to Africa and said, I want to learn here and I'm going to start making notes and I'm going to start doing things. And she basically was tutored by the Leakeys who she worked with. Oxford conferred that degree on her. My goodness, she had so much work. What are they supposed to do? She didn't say, oh, I need one more social studies credit. I need one. She just did the work. And the
Yeah.
next thing you know, she's been conferred a PhD, and Dr. Jane Goodall. A lot of these people who are these executives, they get those degrees, because it makes the college look good. It makes the person look good. And so for the first year, they might say, oh, they received this degree. After that, when you start looking at their bios, just as, oh, got a degree from this university, from this university, from that university. So that concept of that college degree is not everything. What is important, I always tell people, it's not the degree that's important, it's the learning and the education that are important. And as long as you continue the education and learning, you're fine. But even so, you go, oh, I'm insecure because I don't have a degree. Well, then I look at the people and they go, oh, I have a degree. And they're insecure because they think they have the wrong degree. I
Isn't
went
that true?
and I got the degree, but it was the wrong degree. And it's like, let's stop looking at these are antiquated systems. They're outdated and they
Yeah.
don't work. And so what we need are people who are saying, pulling those curtains back and saying, no, this is what needs to be done. When you know what needs to be done, you also know what you need to learn. You know, I want to attain this, but I probably need some more information in this area, this area, or this area. So you focus on just what you need to be educated on. And maybe it's a seminar, maybe it's a course, maybe it's online for free. It can be anything. What's important is the knowledge that you gain, not the certificate that you can walk around and say that you've got.
Yeah. It's a map, right? So
Yeah.
which I think is a good thing. So our time is rushing by. So do you want to tell everybody where they can find you?
Absolutely. A simple website is www.extraordinaryfireflies.com. And like I said, on there is a free download that's got exercises right there, flying lessons for fireflies. And when you download it, it puts you on a mailing list that once a week I send out something that's just a small tidbit that's for inspiration or encouragement to say you're not allowed to give up. You're allowed to get frustrated, you're allowed to rest, but you're not allowed to give up.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And your book is on your website and Amazon and local bookstores, all those good things.
Yes, and through the website, it's also got all the connections to the Instagram and to the Facebook pages and everything else just to follow along to see what we're doing and who I'm connecting with, and more fireflies. And what's neat is it starts bringing in people from all over that are just really doing amazing things. And it really is inspiring for the future. And I truly believe that as we each shine our light brighter, we're giving permission to more and more people who are standing on the sidelines to go, if she can do it or he can do it, I can do it too.
So can I. Yeah.
That's amazing. So if you had a final thought to leave with everybody, what would be your final thought to leave?
Ah, Carl Jung once said, if the path before you is clear, you're probably on someone else's. So if you know what makes you happy and you know what you want to do, but you don't know that path forward, you're in the right place, because that's exactly where you need to be to create your own path. And the
Mhm.
trick to that is just listening to your heart.
That is a wonderful message. Thank you so much.
Sure is.
It's been so
Beautiful.
fun to have you on. You have such great energy and
Do you ever?
and it will be very inspiring for everybody. So thank you so much for joining us. And we hope that you'll come back on and join us another time because I feel like you got, I'm going to say two,
More
three
to say.
books inside of you. So, and
We're just
lots of
getting started.
information to share. So we'd love to have you back. So thank you so much for being.
And
Yeah. Thank you
thank
so
you
much for
both. This has been
coming. Yeah.
wonderful.
Okay. Thank you. And everybody else, we will see you the next time.
You bet.